the city of Lake Helen had not yet been formed. And by 1888, it was then became a city. In 1894, the African AME Church, the Mount Olive Baptist Church, was formed 131 years ago, and they will be celebrating their anniversary on the 21st. So, in honor of that, which is what I'm trying to do, is to reach out to all our community pastors. So I have Pastor Cheryl Myrick on the phone, and she will give the opening prayer. Pastor, are you there? No. Pastor, are you there? Okay. You can begin whenever you want. Would you please stand?
Church anniversary on July 21st at 4 p.m. Everyone is welcome. Let us pray. Our Father, we invite you to preside over this meeting. Even if we have different opinions, give us unity of spirit. We ask your blessings on the people who have been called to lead the city and community in which we live, work, and play. Grant them the wisdom and courage to know and to do what is right and good and true. We desire your glory and blessings in all we do. Father, please guide us so that this meeting can be productive. We place you in the center of this meeting. In Jesus' name, amen.
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 United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Is there any additions or deletions from the commission? Did the add, subtract? Hearing none. Just like to read this. We have a very full agenda tonight, so we want to try and keep all of whatever anyone needs to get to speak. We want to have that opportunity, but be sure that everyone will have their time. So with that being said, this statement I'd like to read as a part of our meeting. Minutes. Good afternoon. Regular city meeting. We ask that you please silence your mobile devices before we commence. We want to ensure that everyone's voice is heard within the confines of time. And to facilitate this, each speaker will be allotted 3 minutes to share their point of view. We kindly ask speakers to be mindful of the time limit out of respect for others who wish to contribute. All speakers shall be recognized by the chair by submitting paperwork for that occasion, and all persons in attendance shall be respectful. We're calling out from the audience, and thank you for your understanding and your cooperation. That being said, first things first. The approval of the minutes. This is our consent agenda, which consists of the approval of the previous sitting minutes, acceptance of any bills paid, acceptance of the budget that has been submitted. If there's anyone that would prefer to have one of those items to be discussed, or can we, if necessary, vote on them as a block consent agenda? So it's open.
I have a question on the bills.
On the building? Okay. Anybody else?
We can't hear.
Minutes?
I can't. I'm sorry, but we can't hear you. Thanks.
On the minutes portion, we have special events, job presentation review.
Okay. So we won't have a sorry.
That was, this is the one.
What was yours?
Oh, mine was on the bills.
On the bills, okay. Well, actually, we start first. Minutes. Okay.
One correction.
Thank you.
Heather's not related to me. You gotta correct the last name. 12B.
Okay. Thank you for that. All right. 12B on minutes. Any questions on minutes besides the correction? Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Motion has been made. Is there a second? Motion is moved in second. All in favor? Aye. And those exceptions? None. So, acceptance of the bills paid. Any discussion on that?
Yes.
Thank you.
No, no. Oh, this is-
I have some concerns. I don't know. Just a few of them, but I'm sorry, something you want to talk about, I want to do that.
Turn your mic on.
On graphics, we ordered some business cards for the mayor and for Karen. It appears like there's 3 items, 2 boxes at $65, and then again for the mayor and for Karen for $740. So I'm questioning the amount and what did we order?
I saw that as well.
It's on the second page.
It's down at the bottom of the first page, business cards, the last 3 entries, business cards for the mayor, Aaron, business cards for the mayor, Aaron, plus envelope, both times. The first one was for $65, the middle one was for $740, and $65.
Yes, Mayor. First of all, I just want to clarify, I got an email today, and someone thinks that we're paying multiple items with the same check number, and they don't understand budgeting or the following of the budget. Because what you'll see is a check number may be listed several times, but what you have to do is look over to the account number, because the account number is actually the department. So just to give an example, and I'll get to the question on those issues there. So if we get a bill from Verizon, that bill may be $3,000, but a portion of it goes to the police, a portion of it goes to public works, a portion goes to administration. So you will see the same check number of the same vendor and with a different dollar amount, but what you have to do is look and see what account number. You'll see the different account numbers correlate to a different department. In reference to the office graphics, they were business cards for $65, but then we also have to purchase envelopes that we use for the city. I'll give you an example. We just used $1,500 the other day doing the water mail now involving the notes. So we replenished our office supply of envelopes, and they have to be printed envelopes with our address and whatever on there. So it wasn't $700 on business cards. It was the same company that does the business cards that we get our envelopes from.
Okay, well, that explains it, and I understand the different departments that it's being
Yeah.
billed to. But when I see the amounts and the same description, rather see it broken out where it's for the police department, the description matches the account number that it's been charged to, because that was not right.
What I can have staff meeting tomorrow is ask Karen, because I mean, there's only so much room in entering something. So it's not like we can enter each line item. So it's the vendor. So if it said business cards and Aaron and Karen and envelopes, you won't get one that'll say just business envelopes and just business cards. The software doesn't allow that entry.
It's one description per check, so it was one check that needs to pay.
Do you have to use the same description for
It's
each
just one
check?
entry, yes.
Yes,
That goes in, and then the check itself is allocated to different line items.
on the left-hand side, all three items have the same check number.
They have the same check number, but if you look further over, you'll see business cards 552,000, 548003. So there are different departments that's charged to. So, for example, the mayor's business cards would have been charged to legislative.
Well, then my next question is, since I don't know which those departments are, can I get a printout that shows all of our different departments and what they?
Yes, ma'am, and they're also on the budget variance report.
Okay.
Yeah. Every department, and then in the department, you'll see, 5520. I mean, so if you go through the budget variance, every one of these account numbers would match up to a line item in terms of that.
Okay, so we're gonna have to kind of be going back and forth with
I mean, that's
the
the
research it.
That's the easiest way, I mean, in that aspect. So it's not like we're paying, for example, I'll pull out on here. You've got Duke Energy listed 1, 2, 3, 4 times, and it's one check. But again, if we go back through, every portion of that is allocated
Yeah.
for the department.
Yeah, and I'm kind of used to it when I saw business cards, Karen and the mayor.
Because all of that was ordered from the vendor at the same time, so that's how that came in.
Okay, well, I would like to continue on. I think this is page 2. You really have to help me looking at it because I can't see. Pond Company, we paid them over $7,000 for miscellaneous engineering. And then we paid, that these are on different days. Pond Company, engineering services for, I think I can pick this up.
Engineering services for phase 2 of Melissa Park, that's the first one.
Yeah.
The second one is miscellaneous engineering services for 5/1/2024 to 5/31.
That's a different check, the one above is the same check.
Two separate checks,
Yeah,
but
but,
the same company.
so then I'm wondering though, what I get from Melissa Park, the miscellaneous item of almost $2,500.
Well, give you an example. At the last meeting, we had the discussion about lemon and survey. And so, just like the attorney and others, when we have to reach out to our engineering firm, there's charges and whatever it is. So it may not be specific to a project. If it's specific to a project, the project will be listed. If it's miscellaneous, like for example, trying to track down surveys that may or may not have been done in terms of that. This also, I'd have to see the detail on the bill, because we can pull that and I can email you all tomorrow, but, there are other projects, Kick Lighter and things that go on where we have emails and phone calls. They're also involved in some of our plan reviews, so you will see the invoice and you'll see the payment. But on some of these, what you don't see is that we pay Pond, but then we may turn around and take a portion of that bill and charge it to, for example, Bobby Luke. Engineering has to look at his project, so the citizens aren't paying the cost of developers. But we pay the bill, and then we split up some of those bills, and they get carried out. That you'll find under the LPG, probably 90% of what we get billed, you'll see this extensive list, that gets passed on to each individual applicant, and that could be its combination here.
And then we have West Volusia Beacon. I guess their services for $814.23 for $43 for advertising for water operator. It took us a year to pay them or more, or close to. That got pulled in, that's on page.
For the B.
Yeah, this is West Volusia.
Well, I know we just renewed our subscription to them. If there's a charge for advertising, again,
we're required by law to advertise your ordinances, first read, second reads, in terms of that. I'm looking here alphabetically, I guess. I should probably go.
So actually, I didn't know if it was a typo or what, but it just kind of stuck out when we were looking at everything encompassing 24, and this was for 2023.
It may have been when the check finally cleared, when the Beacon finally submitted the check.
Well, that makes sense. Okay, that makes sense.
Because of how low the number is and the date so far back.
So we don't have like in the old days, that we don't cash the check within a year, and basically, it's not a boy. That's good for me on those.
I have one question, and I'm sure I can probably answer it for myself. But on White House, we paid them $300 to go on site to 2 sidewalk sites that I believe are new homes that are being built. And they probably want to pay a fee instead of in lieu of putting the sidewalk in, and that might be why. But do we pass that cost on to the homeowner and they reimburse us for that?
Yeah, it would be collected at CO.
Okay.
Anything outstanding, and that would have been exactly in that case, because we would have reached out to them to get a price of what would the sidewalk would cost to go in, so we're able to tell the applicant in lieu of this is what you pay.
Okay. That's what I thought.
Anyone else?
Yeah. I got a question back on the first page with the county of Volusia, the same check number, the same date, the same description, the same account numbers 9 times, or actually 10 times, or 9 times, and the same amount of money the 9 times. So does that mean 9 times the $324.18 is what we paid Volusia County for mosquito?
I can't answer that, because I'm looking at them and seeing they're all the same account number. That's a question I'll have to ask tomorrow as to I don't even want to guess on why that's listed 9 times for the same amount, because the Volusia County would let us know, when the truck's going to come out, and it is about $400 a charge for the fogging truck. So it could be that while they went to the same line item, they could be over a period of time, but I will have to get.
That was also
Yeah.
almost 6 months ago.
Yeah, I'll have to get with Aaron on that to see how that is, because I don't have an answer to that.
Is there anyone else? Well, the elephant in the room that jumps out at me is our attorney's fees for the month of May were $10,927.
Well, if we didn't have to keep asking Scott a lot of questions, the draft ordinances and draft,
We get on the table.
we can produce the bill. This is the only bills for when we ask you to do something. Right, Scott? Okay.
So we'll pay attention to that. Anything else? Anyone else? All right, can I get a motion to approve the minutes? So, the bills, payment of the bills.
I make that motion.
Motion is made to pay the bills. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is moved in second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? One opposed? None? Okay, so passed. Moving right along to the budget variance report. This is a monthly report that is we asked the city administrator to give to us. Can you give us some input on that, background? Instead of pulling out page.
Well, unless you have specific, it's a consent item, it's the same report that I put in there. I give you a cover letter that tells us where we're at. This report is through May 31st, because of the timing of our meeting. I told you this before. And the accounting firm that we use with the closing of the books, the report isn't ready for our meeting time for the agenda, so we're always a month behind. So through the end of May, that is 8 months out of the year. So if every line item was equal, then we would have spent 66.4% of our budget through 8 months. And currently, the city's general fund is at 76%, so it's 9.6% over budget at the end of May 31st.
Comments?
Yeah. Comments. Are we gonna have enough money to get us through the rest of the year? I mean, we're really tipping the pot here with being, I mean, we're over budget, and then when you go look at the variance report, there's some huge negative line items, you know, such as 33,000, 17,000, 53,000, that are all in the negative. How are we making that up?
Well,
Are we?
two things will happen as we get closer into the year. And, you know, some bills are paid at the beginning of the year, so it may look like you're over budget, but if it's a lease and it's paid at the beginning of the year, it would appear that it's over, but there may not be anything else to come out of that line item. So as each month goes by, you may see that percentage come down. If there are other line items, and I'll give you a clear example, it's called under executive, travel and per diem, budgeted 2,000, but we spent 5,298. There was a portion of that as part of my hiring, paid moving expenses if I moved into Lake Helen. So you had some things happen this year that weren't budgeted for. The same with hiring the consultant. That was $30-some thousand that wasn't budgeted. So, and I think Rick would be able to tell you in particular in Parks and Rec, because that is one area that we're significantly over in some areas, is the fact that with some tree trimming and some other work that had been done, he was playing catch-up for things that weren't done previous. Now, since we've been doing the budget variance report, I've been able to hopefully, since this information was not provided to department directors in the past, they now can start following their budgets on a monthly basis. And I'm working with each one of them because we're putting the budget together for 24-25, and been working with each. And so hopefully in the new budget, their line item is going to be what they ask for and what they tell the commission they need. And so therefore, if there's a problem on that line item in 24 and 25, they're going to have to address that to you as of why then they're over or not. The other thing, Lynn, that will happen on this when we get towards the end, there will be some budget amendments. Like, for example, you had $60,000 budgeted for a special event coordinator. We didn't fill that position, but the commission made the decision to take $9,500 out of that to pay the balance of the fireworks, because it was only $10,000. So you don't see that shift now. We'll have to bring an amendment to you that will actually move some money from some line items. Worst case scenario, if you're over, then part of that would be an amendment, a budget amendment that would take money from your reserves, because you have to have a balance budget under law. So those are the two scenarios. Some of it will come by shifting some of the line items in the sense of, like example, that one there. So right now you will look at fireworks line item under Parks and Rec, and you'll see that's over budget.
Right.
And then when we do a budget amendment, we'll take that 9,500 out of the 60. And so technically that line item then would show in line for its budget. I'm not going to tell you that every one of these will have a matching corresponding. And again, it's not passing the buck, but I didn't put this budget together and talk. Oh, no, I get that. But I also found, to be very honest, that your department directors had very little input.
Well,
So I'm going to tell you, I'm uncomfortable where we're at, because I'm managing a budget that I didn't have anything to put together with. And then when I talked to people who worked with us and told them, some of them were handed their budget and said, this is what it is. And what I found is that the it's not Lee, it's just the way the process was, that instead of having a discussion where somebody would look at a line item, they just would budget the same amount that was budgeted the year before. And nobody sat down to look to see, did they spend more than that in that given year? And, or talk to the chief, or talk to Ricky and say, hey, we put 8,000 for professional services, but I see you spent 40. Well, when they put the budget together again, they just went with the same $8,000 line item. And they were like, for example, under special events, they zeroed out your $10,000. So you look at that line item, there's no money in there, and we're over budget by almost $7,000.
Well, I know that at the end of the year, we'll be moving some things around if there's any money in any pot.
But-
That's my concern. But I do have one other question. It seems like every time we get the variance report, I see edit payment. We're at like 193% usage. Are we still paying him anything for?
No, when Lee left, he was owed his PTO time,
Right.
okay? Vacation and sick time, and then final payments on his retirement, which would have been portions of his contract.
So we couldn't get
These
that.
were all things that were done when he left in February, so there's no continuing payments going on.
Well, that's what I thought, but
Yeah.
apparently we didn't get that right because we're 193%
Well,
on that.
well,
When we started.
but you're also then now paying money in for me into the same fund for retirement, so you had a payout on him involving a lump sum of money, and then, mine on top of it, so when you overlap and you have his payout, I mean, that would cause the increase.
Okay, I don't think we were done. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yes, I'm wondering, does this budget include any of the grant money or funding that we are due or owed throughout this fiscal year?
I don't know. I'd have to know a specific line item maybe to,
No, specifically in reference to the word is hard to say, Florida Rural Water.
Pardon?
The Florida Rural Water Association. I was trying not to
Yeah,
say it.
yeah, I mean, there are costs going out of the water department right now involving the entire meter swap. And what we've done is we paid money out of our pocket, and some of that is out of reserves. We're in the process of finalizing a loan that Lee was supposed to have in place with the state revolving
Right.
fund,
Right, that's
revolving loan fund, and I think we're okay, but I have not got the final answer, because there was a question on how we went through the bid process to get the company to do that.
Okay, so have any of those, minus that one, have any of the other ones hit that we've done throughout the year?
Yeah, for example,
I didn't see those reported.
Melissa Park, you will see Melissa Park as an expense, but then once the expense was done, all of that information is sent to the county, and then we get what portion of CDBG was allocated. They don't give you the money up front. You have to spend it first, and then you get it back. So that will show up on the revenue side. So it won't be till the end of the year.
Till the
when you
very
see-
end, when we balance?
Yeah, and then you
Okay.
can see a revenue sheet. and you can
Okay,
see
that's what I
revenue.
thought this was, but I wanted to make sure.
Yeah, this is just expenses. This is not revenue.
Right, okay, that's
And,
exactly what I thought.
and I know some people think that, let's say, for example, we do events and we get sponsors that come in. That money doesn't go back into that expense line item. It goes into a general miscellaneous revenue fund line item. So I know there's this perception, oh, well, we got X amount of money for July 4th, so we shouldn't have spent that much. At the end of the year, you'll see that we didn't, but in reference to expenses, you keep them separate.
Okay, I wasn't reading it as an expense report. I was thinking that we were going to have some of that offsetting cost. So I apologize, that was my misunderstanding.
No apology. Some of this will be offset by funds that we may be getting.
Okay, that was my
back.
concern, thank you.
And then, nobody saw the echo, so that $50-some thousand, that was budgeted next year.
I did have one question. Are you saying that but we won't see any revenues until budget time. Why can't we see every month what revenue we've taken in on events and then what our expenditures versus revenue? So we can kind of say, okay, well, maybe we brought in $50,000 on events and we made $40,000 in expenses.
Well, unlike a business, you know, our revenue comes from certain sources, the state and property taxes in terms of there. So I guess from a budget standpoint, there's not a whole lot I can do on the revenue side when you get into a year, but we control the expense side. And I'm not saying that's not a good question, but in 24 years of doing this, we've always focused on the revenue, the money that you budgeted for going out that year, and then where does that match up? I just did not ask for a revenue report because to some degree, I mean, at least in reference to where we're at, I'll use the word, I don't want to say it's irrelevant, but the two don't necessarily match until I get to the end of the year. Because we can sit down and try to say, you know, for example, we paid pond, and then, okay, was there an expense for pond that was billed to a developer? Was one of Scott's bills, you know, charged to the auto mall? I mean, so there are areas where then there's revenue that would come in from that vendor, but I think that would get really detailed and complex. Just on-
That's similar to a P&L, and those are a little bit more complex, like you're saying. So it takes a little bit longer to prepare that. I don't know if it's feasible to have monthly, maybe quarterly, I would think would be more reasonable request, but monthly.
And when Zach gets back, I can ask that question, because I mean, as you know, there wasn't even a variance report before I came. You guys were just.
And I wonder what if that there's another fee associated with that that's included.
I don't know, because I do get questions from them. We're going through a process now of disengaging from one software company because we were paying for two. And one, the office didn't like, and they never asked for it, but they were never asked. And so I got a question back from Zach and saying, well, okay, well then there's our cost to do this transport of data and information and what happens. So I would need to check and see, because he gives a flat fee and it's in the budget for the general fund, and then there's another accounting charge in the water utility funds that they charge for that. So I'd have to look at the scope and say, okay, if I start asking for more things from them, is there a greater cost? And that goes back to the debate, and tonight's not necessarily tonight to have that on, you know, is contracting finance efficient versus having a finance person in-house? Because I'm used to having my finance director at every meeting, and they've always been females, and they're some of the strongest and brightest people that I've worked with, so that a lot of these questions you'd be asked, and my finance director would be able to almost tell you per line item what was going on, even on the revenue side. So I mean, but right now, I'm not comfortable enough to make a recommendation on should we change the direction we're going. I think working this budget process with the accounting firm is giving me a little bit better feel, and I think when we get towards the end of the budget process, may make a recommendation on whether or not we should continue with that, or maybe we look at changing of the contract to bringing that in-house.
More comments, questions?
Yeah, I just got one. Even though it shows that there's some of them that we've gone over the amounts on and everything, the final figure shows that we're at 79% of our annual budget, which we only got, what, 2.5 more months left in our budget year, so we're right on par with it, so it's working out.
And counting that, Roger, I mean, you're right, since this is May, so you've got June, July, August, September, so four months to go. And again, on some of the line items, if we go through in detail, you know, and I'll give an example, there may be dues are paid to the Florida League of Cities and what have you. So somebody may look at that and say, oh my gosh, we spent 75% of our money. Well, we only paid the due one time. And so it shows in the beginning, but as each month goes by, that percentage drops and comes to the balance. Some of these line items, could do that because they could be lease payments on a copier, which is maybe either done quarterly or annually. And so it can show, somebody might think in the very first month of the year, oh my God, we spent 80% on that line item, how are we gonna make it through the year? Well, it's because there's no more bills coming in against that line item because it was a one-time payment. And as we get through there, and I'm learning, just preparing the budget with the staff this time in true partnership. So Aaron and Roxanne have been great internally at the executive side because Aaron will come in and will tell just questions like when you've asked. It's like, okay, Aaron, what went under this line item? What are we billing in there? So I have an idea. And we have found some areas, things have been put in the wrong category. And, you know, they are in the wrong line item and they need to be in another. And I'll give an example, and you know, we don't have to go into detail, but, you know, there might not have been money in contract services in some areas, which Rick uses a lot, but they put more money in professional services, where it may not have been as needed as much, just depends. So sometimes that bill comes in. What I am doing and working with Aaron and the commission, or the staff, we go back to well, just looking at your report, Lynn, you can see it on here, on any, in fact, all of you. I mean, you look at the legislative and you'll see the account numbers. Okay, so those are the account numbers that appear on the bills paid report. And in terms of that, the school that I come from is that when a bill comes in, the director, when he or she gives that bill to Aaron, they are the ones that write that account number on the bill in a documented form. So she's not left guessing where should this go in terms of something coming in. And some of that has happened in the past. And so, you know, so actually Roxanne.
Repeat that. I'm sorry. I'm having a tough time understanding. Did you say that the directors are coding their receipts
They should be.
to the different GL codes?
No, they weren't coding. And
They're
so,
not.
Yeah, so in some instances, Aaron, maybe, or even, you know, Zach at the accounting firm will contact Aaron and say that was in the wrong item and it needs to go to another. So what I want is a form, just like you see on this budget report. You'll see legislative. Every one of those line items will be on there. If we ordered business cards, for example, you know, then I would probably be the one to fill that out, or maybe Roxanne. And so we would give a form to Aaron that has a list of all these account numbers. We'd have the vendor, we'd have the amount on there, and we put a check mark by a box of which one of these account numbers that invoice should go to. And what that should is minimize things getting put in wrong line items. And it also teaches a director to read their budget, to look at their line items and to know where it should be. You don't look at the budget and say, oh, I've got money in this line item I haven't used. It doesn't work that way, and that's why you'll see some of the negatives, because it's like, no, you can't go and put that in telephone just because you have money there. That is a completely different expense, so it has to go in the line item that it's matched up against. So I'm hoping when we get through this process this year and we get into the new budget that there'll be a little more checks and balances and some responsibility on the part of the directors managing their budgets.
I'm up in school at law enforcement to say sometimes it's best to have fresh eyes looking at something. Fresh eyes is what found that we had an overtime situation with our staff that was pretty costly, but it was seen by the same people over and over. After a while, they got used to it until we had somebody else look at it from a different perspective and question it. So with regards to our work with both of the, having the in-house finance director, as opposed to where we now have this new hybrid, and I would say that the personal touch is always good, because you got somebody you can ask, why is this, and you can get the answer there, and not have to wait till a commission meeting to have it explained to us, or even say that, well, I'll get back to you. So that point being said, do we accept this the year-to-date budget variance reports with all corrections that are.
Motion to accept the budget variance report.
Motion made. Is there a second? Second, all in favor? Ayes have it. So moved. Any old business? Have none here. New business? City administrator reports? You have several things that are coming your way.
Yes, sir. Before I get to A, I guess it's an amendment, but two issues that came up that I wanted to add here. One is, as I told you earlier, that we'll be wrapping up the draft budget tomorrow and sending it to Zach with the anticipation of having it back by July and directors looking at it again. So I'd like the council to see if they might be available the week of August 8th. And maybe we look at a budget workshop on Tuesday the 6th, Wednesday the 7th. And if we can't complete it in 2 nights, we could even carry then a portion of that over to our Thursday meeting, August 8th.
What those dates again?
August 6th, which would be a Tuesday. August 7th would be a Wednesday, and our regular meeting is August 8th, a Thursday.
6th, 7th, or, and the 8th is our.
And the 8th would be if we need more time and we didn't get through it on the
So it's the 6th or 7th?
6th and 7th.
You want both?
Yeah, yes. If we get through it in one night, we don't have to do the second night, but since I haven't done this with you guys, I don't know how long it takes. Sometimes it's a lot.
What's the title of this? Is it budget workshop?
Budget workshops, yeah.
Would there be a problem with doing it Monday the 5th and Wednesday the 7th?
I'm free.
It's just that I'm busy on the 6th.
Yeah, no, that's good. I just propose those, anywhere in that week would be fine, other than a Friday night.
So you need a date now?
No,
Because it's a month away.
yeah, I mean, no, but yeah, but we won't have a meeting before, so if you guys check your calendars and just let me know if there's any conflict, then, I mean, we can roll it over to the week of the 19th, but I just want to leave enough time so that if we do some, adjusting back and forth, my goal is that you have the budget buttoned up and done before you get to the public hearings. I mean, while I know motions can be made and budget can be changed in those final hearings, but most of my career I've been very fortunate that we've all gotten on the same page and we know what the budget is going in. So usually those public hearings are just the formality of law of how we go through that. And I would kind of like to avoid the budget being changed on the final night. It's got to be approved and not knowing the actual impact it may have. So that's why getting it done earlier allows all of us a comfort level of knowing what we've done. But if there's a problem that week of the 5th, I mean, there is the week of the August 19th. I don't pick the week in between because that week, the mayor and the vice mayor will be at the Florida League of Cities, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. So
The question I had, Commissioner Devanada mentioned the 5th of August, and you said the 5th, 6th, 5th, 5th and 7th. And I think if we use the 5th, and if we can take care of it on the 5th, we might not need the 7th.
Correct.
Or if necessary, we have the 7th.
But I'm going to guess
5
5 months here with you guys on how long meetings go, that we're going to need 2 days.
Okay, so you want to make a...
What time are you looking
This wants us to get rid of.
Well, we can do 6 to 8, 7 to 9. I mean, huh?
As long as it's not Tuesday morning, I got it.
No, we still want them to be available. One, Heather works full-time, and I want to accommodate that, and we also want to make it easy for the public to be able to attend your talk, your budget. And so, the workshop, they get to be here and see the sausage made. So we have tentative then, August 5th and 7th right now, unless anybody gets back with me with a conflict.
Would we want to start it around 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock?
I think 6, only again, I'm referring for Heather because I know her work schedule and hate for her to have to take off time or adjust her schedule for something that's very. So let's say 6 to 8
But do we
or
just
6 to 9. I mean, we can go as long as you want. I mean, I'll be honest.
So we can use a consensus?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm in favor if it's 7.
Okay.
Free this 6, 7, 8.
All right. Unless I hear something different within the next couple of days, then we'll be able to publish that, and we'll set a date and time, for the budget workshop. The second item I wanted to discuss with you about, there was damage done on West Ohio Avenue, I think under Ian. And I think under the FEMA process, it's about a $13,000 to $14,000 repair. We have bid this project 3 times and have gotten 0 responses. Not a single vendor has bid on it. It's a small project, and I think for some companies, with growth, with Disney going on, they're not there. So I checked with FEMA, and they said as long as the city follows its purchasing policies, we still could be eligible for reimbursement of this project, but I need to get the conditions of approval to use the city's purchasing policy to try to find a vendor. And I think that with Rick's resources and some of the vendors we've used before for road projects or whatever, we may find a better luck of getting somebody who's willing to do a $13,000, $14,000 project. Where right now we're advertising, we're putting it out there, we're doing Zoom meetings, and we've got nobody bidding on it. So at some point, FEMA's going to say either get the project done or we're not going to give you the $13,000.
What's the project?
Rick?
It's on East Ohio, where the tree fell down during there. It uprooted right there, and also put a divot in the asphalt. The stump got removed and the asphalt repaired.
Similar like they did on Delphire a few years back.
Yes.
Need some directions on that?
Yeah, like the commission's authority to go through our purchasing policy to attempt to bring a vendor. And we can always bring that back to you. I mean, in a sense of you're not approving someone's.
I'll make
time,
that
just bring it back.
motion to allow them to go through our purchasing policy to handle it.
Second.
Second, motion, and second. All in favor?
Aye.
One question, is that you're using our budgeting, our policy, so we have a clause where if there is no vendors that would be acceptable or accessible, that we can use one that may not be bid upon?
If we get, I think, Rick, was it 3 written?
Yeah, 3
Yeah, 3 written, as long as we get, or attempt to get 3 written quotes, and we show we do that, then we met our purchasing policy, and then FEMA's okay with that, because we used our purchasing policy.
So we use our purchasing policy to get 3 bids, and then those 3 bids are,
Then we'll bring those back to you, we'll make a recommendation, you guys will pick the bidder.
But did you already go through that process? And did you already go through that process and get 0 back?
0 back 3
So
times.
now we're going to go out and find our.
And try to find it, based on the fact that, Rick's, I'm guessing on this one here, I'm just gonna give him credit, years of experience or whatever, he may know some companies that may be willing to look at it, but they just weren't willing to put a bid in on the, what's the bid program we use? Manstar.
Which system did you use?
Pardon?
Which system did you use?
Manstar.
Manstar?
Yeah. And most of your commercial contractors are part of, one of the bidding, so it meets all the legal advertising in terms of that process. So we basically were taking the same information, documentation that was on there, and Rick can use that then. And just, because there are other road folks that do work and do things here in the county that maybe the personal contact of, hey, we've got this small project, would you be willing to bid on it?
And I'm going to reach out to the county because they did McKenzie for us for a fraction of the cost. They can also do our work too, so I'll reach out to the county road and bridge. They do work and we have an agreement with them. So that's one I'll reach out to right away.
all in favor?
You already voted.
No, I was in the middle of the motion, and I was asking a question before we That's perfect. Okay, moving right along.
Batting cages.
Batting cages for the Mitchell brothers.
Yes, the Deland Sons Youth Baseball uses the Mitchell Brothers baseball facility, and they have requested at their cost and expense to install batting cage at the Mitchell Brothers Park. They've got a rendition, I've got a picture in there of the location and what it would look like. They will put it up, they will maintain it at their cost, and it will be available to the public, in addition to the teams that play there during that process. And since it's city property, I don't have the authority to tell somebody they can't do something in city property without permission approval.
I think I saw something somewhere that we had put a bid out.
Yeah, no mistake.
We put a bid out.
Pardon?
Are they paying for the batting cages?
Oh, they're paying it all, yeah, there's no tax dollars involved in this whatsoever, it's just you giving them permission to improve your recreational facility.
That sounds like
Motion. No question.
Yeah, we'll get, but they wanted to know if the concept was going to be okay before we went through the actual getting the agreement.
Vice Mayor, has a question?
Is that, might be a question for Rick, is that going to interfere with the location going to interfere with any future plans on anything going on there?
No, actually, that's the best place for it, because it's up front, where you can actually watch it from the road, and the police department can, patrol it. Years ago, you had one in the back when they had all three fields in between there, and that thing, went bad. But this is a really nice setup, and it's a perfect spot where the old equipment was. It would be a perfect place for it.
Okay.
I have a question. First, I want to say that's extraordinarily generous, amazing, and thank you to the Deland Sons, I believe, for even suggesting to do this. It's incredible. I'm just wondering about our liability insurance and what that looks like, and is it, since it is on city property? I don't wish to make assumptions.
I can check that, as Scott was saying to me. I'm bringing you the concept. If you all approve the concept, then what we'll go through is that process, an actual formal agreement that will spell those things out, and also reference to maintenance, repair, and upkeep.
Fantastic.
I believe it'll have the same liability as our basketball courts do.
That's the same, but just to make sure, it might have to be listed or something like that. So in that case, I make a motion that we move forward with the batting cages for Mitchell Brothers.
Second.
Motion moved in second, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
All none opposed, so moved. 9B is avoid TPO annual membership.
This is $302, so I mean, to be honest, I toyed with whether or not to put it on here or not. We're a member of the TPO, in fact, Roger is our member of the TPO that you guys signed, I think it was in February. And this is the renewal of the 24-25, and while I don't know why we wouldn't be a member of it, but they sent a formal letter of request involving a funding agreement and an invoice, and then they have an agreement attached. So it's not so much the $302, I just need to make sure that the commission approved the agreement to continue our one-year membership with the Transportation Planning Organization.
Motion.
Second.
Motion approved in second, all in favor?
Aye.
All in favor, so moved.
On the TPO, have you received the survey yet? They're supposed to send out a survey to all the city managers, administrators on TPO projects and stuff like that.
I will check my email tomorrow right off the top. I don't recall
I
seeing
don't
it.
know if they're going to mail them out or email them out.
But I will check. I haven't gotten anything in the mail, but I'll be honest, the last 2 weeks between getting this agenda together and working on the budget, in between this city will kill you over public records requests. I understand that, just to handle all questions, okay? So there's a lot of things that are going on, so Roger, right off the top,
And just to let you know that they're working on a 25-year plan.
Okay. Yeah, just right off the top, I don't recall saying that because, I mean, usually I respond to things like that quickly because I'm one of those, like, to get them off my desk and move on so I can spend my time doing public records requests.
And we're moving on to,
I have a question on the TPO. Roger, did you ever find a citizen that would fill that slot that you were looking for?
Not the Citizens Action Committee, we still have,
You have somebody on the bicycle, pedestrian.
Patrick that's doing the bicycling pedestrian one. But each one of those positions also could be an alternate. We can have an alternate to it, so if, what's the name, Jamie wanted to be an alternate, he can still be an alternate. But what the committees do is they approve recommendations for public safety projects, which include sidewalks, bike paths, trails, roadways, projects, and stuff like that. So if we have a city representative on that board, it helps for us to get our needs into the program. And then the main TPO one approves or denies what the different committees recommend to them. So our participation in those is very important for us to be able to get things done.
and actually, when they requested a representative for TPO, one of the things that TPO suggested is that we have an alternate because for several years we didn't have anyone, so we were not at that table. So, I think volunteered as if you can't make it, that's
We just have to sign the alternates on.
good. Moving to the next one. The appointment, speaking of volunteers, Lake Helen's appointment to the Volusia County Growth Management, I'll read this point. The main purpose of the commission is to provide an effective means for coordinating the plans of municipalities and the county in order to provide a forum for several local governments in the county to cooperate with each other in coordinating the provisions of public services and improvements for the citizens of the county, and create incentives to foster intergovernmental cooperation and coordination. The City of Lake Helen seat for the Volusia Growth Management Commission is currently vacant and has been vacant for some time. I'm writing on behalf of the commission to kindly request that the city consider taking actions to appoint a member to serve on the DGMC. Doing so will ensure the city is represented at the commission and has a voice in the actions taken by the DGMC. The current term expires, the seat which is unfilled, expires on June 25th. Membership requirement includes that the member must reside within the jurisdiction and cannot violate the dual office holding positions of the city in the Florida Constitution. That means that not one of us can take this position. It would have to be a member of the community. So it's recommended that we either come up with a name to submit, because the term is still has not been, it has been unfilled all of this time, and it won't be expiring until the 30th of June. So we have enough time to put it on our agenda to have the commission, if so desired, to come back with individuals that may want to sit on this board and participate.
You're right on that, Mayor. I didn't expect you to appoint tonight, but just like when the TPO came up, we talked about open positions. We gave you an opportunity that you may know people in the community, somebody who might have an interest. So you all may be able to get someone who's interested, and then you can appoint them at any subsequent commission meeting.
Clear on that?
If any citizen out there wants
Red Bill D990, animal control. Scott, do you read this?
Yes, I can read that. Ordinance number 2024-04 by title only for second and final reading. An ordinance of the City of Lake Ellen, Florida, amending section 24.04.00, duty of animal warders to be responsible owners, to provide regulations for the tethering of animals, providing for legislative findings, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, providing for clarification, providing for effective.
Any questions?
I was, you remember at the last meeting, June Troy was here talking about it, and so she contacted me, and we went back and forth on some changes. Really, where the only difference is between what I'm recommending and what Ms. Troy was recommending is she wanted to define temporary, if you remember when we were here, and I think she had said, let's do 2 hours as temporary, so you could temporarily tether your animal, but it could only be up for 2 hours. The concern I have with that is that it was an enforcement issue, because now you would have to monitor, or police would have to monitor the site for 2 hours. You couldn't drive by and say, well, it was there at 1 o'clock, you come back at 3 o'clock, and if it's still there, all you have evidence of is it was there at 1 and it went to 3. You don't know where it was at 2. And all they have to do is say, I run it back in at 2. It wasn't 2 continuous hours. So what I was proposing is that we eliminate the word temporary and the language actually say that you have to be outside in the presence, in visible sight. The dog can see you, you can see the dog at all times. And you can have the dog, if you have that outside party for 4 hours and the dog was connected to a chain and you were out there with the dog, that's fine. You go inside and that dog is outside, it's not okay. And then there you have a violation, and that's where, one of our animal control or law enforcement goes by and they see a dog outside chained up. We don't have to worry about how long it's been. We just know the dog is there, outside, and the owner's not within sight. And then law enforcement can use their discretion. If someone says, oh, I just ran in, I had to answer the phone. Or I'm just around back, I just went over here to get something. They can use their judgment there, but I was just concerned about saying, if you had that time period, that it might be a burden for staff to say, to have to prove. I mean, if you write a law, you want to be able to enforce it. And so to have to prove that that dog was outside for continuously 2 hours or 1 hour or 30 minutes, I mean, whatever you pick, you have to sit there and watch that period of time. Or have someone else be able to say, look, I live across the street and I sat there and watched that whole time, and they would have to be willing to come in and testify in the citation hearing. So my recommendation is a little different than what Ms. Troy was requesting. I think we're both trying to get to the same point, and I was just worried that defining temporary might become an enforcement issue or a burden on staff. So I recommend taking it out. Whichever way you want to go, I think we might want to talk to Jen, we might talk to the police chief, what their thoughts are on it. But that was the reason what I proposed is a little different than what Mr. Troy requested.
The other thing that...
we took out the language, the one piece you had, Roger, on I think the exception for camping. I think that we deleted that.
The question I have is that in this ordinance, the way it's read, it speaks about the animal and any animal. I'm thinking that this was basically geared toward dogs, because if you have a cat in that, it's technically your animal.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not parceling the distinction between animal and or if you got a goat, if you got a pig. So does that language that I just mentioned, does that become somewhat of an issue? If you speak about somebody that...
Just to refresh everybody's recollection, this came straight from the county. We started with when Ms. Troy asked, just take the county's regulations. And so what we did is just took the county's regulations, added it to our regulations. So the underlying provisions are verbatim from the county. That was the first reading. And so this is the county's regulation. And you're correct, it does say animal.
Any animal.
And so I don't know, does that create an issue with horses?
That's, again,
I don't know the answer. If somebody has a horse, in their, that they leave, I don't have a, all my dogs are inside, so I don't, I don't have a horse or anything else. So I don't know how do you put tethers on horses? I don't know.
The only time they'd be tethered is somebody's walking, they temporarily tether it to a post or a tree while
So
they're,
wrap it around and let it lead.
yeah, while they're either getting some water for it or feeding for it or brushing it or whatever, taking a break.
I think the
But most
intent,
farm animals will either be in a fenced area, they're not tethered, they're just corralled. But anyway, back on K1, the last sentence says temporary is hereby defined as no more than 3 hours from the 24-hour period. Are you talking about removing that also?
where is that on?
K1, the last sentence.
Oh, yeah, that needs to be stricken.
Okay, so you're talking about removing that part also?
Yeah.
And what were you talking about putting in place that the person has to be?
It would be, I'm trying to say, I deleted every word temporary in here. So,
Well, sometimes you gotta have temporary in there because it's temporarily restrained. And
right. Try to see the language. I guess the first part where, yeah, I don't,
well, that eliminates a temporary definition. But
yeah.
are we gonna require that the person be in sight of the animal
Yes,
or
right.
outside with the animal at all times? That they're tethered?
Isn't that how we sent you the
Yeah, this one that's on here is not the one I sent. Because basically paragraph K1, the last one I sent, says, no person shall tether an animal to a stationary or inanimate object as a means of confinement or restraint unless the person is outside of the animal, within proximity to and within sight of the animal, and the animal is at all times visible to such person. That's paragraph 1 of the last one, so I don't know if I got swapped up somehow. Yeah, but I didn't have that.
I like that one better.
This is,
The only place I see where there was a distinction between cats and dogs is that when a dog or a cat is transported in the bed of a vehicle, the dog or cat shall be safely, properly transported in a box. So this is the only part where they made the distinction between cat and dog.
are you talking about the underline or the whole thing?
The 10, I'm just making a distinction that they did speak about a cat, but it's so far into the ordinance itself. I'm curious to see how the county adapts this. Because this is their rule, this is their wording, right?
This is, the underlying part was
So I would be curious.
what might be best under the new law, just because you don't have the last version I sent to the city, maybe what you could do is make a motion to continue this to the August 8th meeting at 7 p.m. And that way you don't have to re-advertise second reading again.
Perfect.
Just make a motion to rehear this at August 8th at 7 p.m.
Is there a motion to that?
Yeah, I'll make that
I'll
motion.
rescind it to you.
Second.
Motion moved and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? So moved.
Can I say one thing? thing though, even though we made the vote, in my readings, everything looks good to me with, you know, the 3 hour, the 2 hour, a couple of things about cats and dogs. But I don't see anywhere in here what the consequences are if someone violates the category of law.
It's a citation.
The police chief here, doesn't the consequences come underneath the police chief fines and ordinance?
schedule.
So it just depends on what's on the schedule.
There's-
what the-
We have another section of the code that deals with citation enforcement of all regulations.
Okay.
Maybe there should be a reference to that from here.
I'm just wondering how the citizens.
So we're going to continue this.
I'll make that motion.
To, you talking about the motion we just did, or?
We just did a motion.
Did y'all do the motion we said here?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I didn't hear it. I apologize.
It's been moved. Second. Moving to the next one, the city charter.
Mayor,
Yes.
do you mind if I just make a comment ahead of time? I don't normally comment in reference to what people post on social media, because quite honestly, you can't believe 3/4 of what people post, and they post things with all the truth to their view, not based on fact or reality. I want the people in this room to know, and the people in this town to know, in reference to the city charter for the city of Lake Helen, I have no fingerprints. I'm not on this. I'm not asking for any more power. I'm not asking for any more authority. This is strictly something that you as a commission were working on before I came here. So the implication that I'm asking for you to switch to a city manager in order to give me more authority or power, that is not coming from Jim Gleason. And I just want folks to know in here that I have enough on my plate now. So I have no issue in terms of the role that I've got, but I feel I need to correct that when I see people posting things that I'm looking for power, I'm looking to seize power, and I've been here 5 months. I'm not looking to seize anybody's power, I'm just looking to do a job.
We're just going to address what's in the charter. Any questions? Any questions? This is open for discussion now.
I'm ready.
Yeah. Inside.
Okay.
Scott, there was a question. Do we have to do a first reading before we? Yes. Just discuss.
Are we allowed to discuss it first, or we got to do the motion for the first reading first?
I'll read it by title first and we'll discuss it. In ordinance number 2024-05, in ordinance of the city of Helen, Florida, adopted pursuant to Florida statute sections 101.161 and 166.31, setting forth proposed amendments to the city's charter submitted to the voters of the city at a general election on, we did the election? November 5th, 2024, providing for a ballot summary and title for each proposed amendment, providing for conflict, providing for severability, providing for codification, and providing for effective date. So, what you have is the ballot summary and ballot title. And with vote yes, what it means, vote no, what it means. It's very similar to the same ballot title and summary that we did at the last election, except we are retaining the 2-year terms, which I believe is what the direction was. So all the other changes that went forward in the last referendum are the same, except we're keeping the 2-year terms. Not proposing 4-year stack.
As I'm reading it, is there quote unquote the Burton clause in here where if you Commissioner runs for mayor or mayor, and they lose, let me read what it says. It says, neither the mayor nor the commissioner who resigns shall be eligible to fill the vacancy created by said resignation.
Yeah, that's the-
That's the
Burton
That's
Clause.
the new one.
That's the new one, yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that was in there.
You want me to put your name in it?
No, I just got enough notoriety.
I can put AKA.
That was what, in terms of questions that came up about, what we're talking about is like if a city commissioner or vice mayor wants to run for the mayor and it happened to be in the same cycle or out of the cycle. In other words, the mayor's cycle is always in an odd year, so it really penalizes zone 2 and zone 4 if they wanted to run for mayor and then they did not win, then the city could, which is what they did for me 2 times I should say, they voted me back in for the city commissioner to reappointed me. So this sort of nixes that stops that. So if you're going to run for mayor and you're in a zone that is not in your regular cycle, if you run for mayor and you do not succeed, then you cannot be considered to refill your seat. Is that, I see Mr. Bishop shaking his head, that's kind of weird.
There was the.
Am I right? Am I interpreting that right?
Yeah, that's correct. And it's only a very unique anomaly that would allow a situation like your situation, because you have to resign to run law. So to run for mayor, you have to resign a seat, another office that has overlapping terms, which would have to occur in your situation. But in your situation, there were 3 candidates. So in the primary, you came in 3rd. So you are no longer a candidate in the general election for election to mayor. So at that point, you then became eligible to be reappointed. Had the commission actually filled your seat by appointment prior to the primary election, you weren't eligible because you were a candidate for the mayor. But after the primary, you were no longer a candidate. You weren't the top 2 vote getters. And so that made you eligible. So that's only the unique situation we're talking about that. You know, if there were only 2 people running for mayor, like if you and, say that, wasn't it Buddy was one of the other ones? If you and Buddy were the only 2 who ran for mayor that year, you could not have been reappointed because you weren't going to be elected until, you know, the general election. The reappointment occurred before that.
The other stipulation is added on that is, or other recall. What's the difference between a recall? Someone is.
And a recall is a process under state law where the voters go through an election process to remove an elected official. And there's a whole process under state law that covers that. And that's the exclusive process.
That removed position could also run for applying for that position.
If the state law allows it.
Yeah, it says staggered terms of office and effective date. Charter shall continue to be in effect. Any commissioner who resigns in order to run shall not be reconsidered as described in the except under recall.
So if recall allows you to seek re-election, which is very, I haven't researched that, the state law under recall trumps all charter provisions. So,
Okay, let's get that out of the way. Yes, sir. Anyone?
I've only been able to get through about half of it, and mainly because I like the way the new one is set up to where everything that's related to an item is all together in that item. But trying to compare the new one and read the old one, I'm having to search the old one to find out where the new one is in the old one at, and it's taken some time to do that. But one of the things I noticed is that in some of the sections, there's a lot that's being left out that gave explanations of why things are being done a certain way. And it leaves a question, and I think it opens up more questions into how the process goes instead of answering the questions. And I think that this, if we're going to go for this big of a change rather than just a couple minor glitches that were left out of the last change that didn't get changed, that we need to turn it over to a commission and a committee and allow them to go through it and properly figure out all the different things in it, and it may have to wait until a later year to be voted on. But I would rather us get it done right if we're going to do the entire thing, rather than jumping on something that leaves questions in the air.
They already did that, the board, the charter committee.
It went through so many different yeses and nos, and finally on the last minute, they said, let's just go with this one.
Microphones, please. Microphones, please.
Oh, sorry. Excuse me.
What was that?
Microphones.
Or my big mouth.
I didn't say that.
I tend to agree with Roger. I have gone through the drafting, but then trying to go back and look at the old charter, which obviously is inconsistent in most areas. Some of the language here, and Jim, you brought it up about in no way are you pushing to become a city manager, but in the draft here, I noticed that under the powers and duties of the city administrator, we didn't change the name of the manager, shall be the chief executive officer of the city responsible to the commission for the management of all city affairs placed in blah, blah, blah. Number one, appoint and suspend or remove all city employees and appointee administrative officers provided for right under this charter. Is that falling under the city manager's responsibility or city administrators?
City manager and city administrator are many times used interchangeably.
Well, yeah, I know, but.
No, it is. So in some instances, there are some cities that have a city administrator that is responsible for all hiring and firing.
Yeah.
Okay. Lake Helen is unique in the manager council form of government. We say manager council form of government, but you are classified as a manager council form of government because you hire someone to handle the day-to-day, but I'm called administrator, but we have a manager form of government in terms of there. I'm not saying yay or nay. I just want people to know this isn't on here tonight, and this isn't there because I'm new here and all of a sudden I've asked this to be done. This is the big discussion I've had that's gone on in this community before I got here. I just wanted to clarify that.
No,
I'm not advocating one way or the other. I will say, and I don't mean to step on any toes, but you do have a system where, in theory, an employee in the city of Lake Helen doesn't have to listen to the city administrator. The employee only has to have 3 friends on the commission. That's all you need is 3 votes.
So that happens throughout the entire city.
Yeah.
So, I'm just saying, so
You can have 3 commissioners with 3 friends out in the audience and.
yeah, no, so I'm saying, so there is a, scenario, and I have no problem with you all dealing with employment, none whatsoever. That's one less headache for me.
Yeah, I mean, right now, I'm leaning towards what Roger said. Let's go back, let's take our time. You've got 5 months in. We know the backgrounds in HR, at least I do. We know problems that have occurred in other cities. And right now, I would feel much more comfortable if we can get both the charters together with good, solid language and not pointing out, like in this language, which is pretty strong, and points more to the city manager's role versus what we do deem as a city administrator.
it doesn't change the name manager. It still uses the city administrator,
I
it
know,
just
but it
redefines
changes
the
the
role.
It's
Gives
the,
them more.
right, and that's the duty that right now I have a problem.
I brought this question up at one of our leadership training sessions with the League of Cities. And what we ended up coming out of it, that the name is just a name, whether it's administrator or manager. It's what jobs they have assigned to them, the responsibilities that make the difference on what they're doing. You can call them administrator and they do the exact same thing that a manager does. You can call them a manager and they can do like what our system's set up with right now. It doesn't matter whether they're manager or administrator. A lot of people tones it that, well, the manager can hire and fire, the administrator can't. No. The job assignments that we give them is what determines what they can do, not the title of their position.
No, we call it a dog catcher here. My job, you know, in the past, it was, okay, I had a director's job, but I did everything else to make the coffee. And so it's a responsibility, not the name.
The very first person that I spoke to about city administrator was the very first city administrator the city had, which is Don Fidel. I didn't know the difference between the manager or commissioner or administrator coming from, a different, system. So what he explained to me was that in some instances, the city commission or the city administrator can actually have more authority than the city manager, because the city commission can empower the city administrator to do things that is not necessary on the level. So we still hold the reins of whatever the city administrator does, because in the creation of the city administrator, what the purpose was is that the city administrator serves at the pleasure of the commission. And as a commission, that's all, there's a number of commissioners that sit in a majority. That was, I guess, the emphasis to referring to if they had if an employee had 3 friends on the city commission who would vote the same way. Of course, that would be something that would come about just because, 3 commissioners believe in the same thing. So we can actually take, and we can, what we can give, we can take away. The city administrator is still operating at the pleasure of the city commission. We would not have advocated our authority over that office, because it only takes 3 commissioners, 2 commissioners, as we've already seen, 3, to fire the city administrator. All it takes is a motion, a second, and a vote.
And
Get out of it.
And it took a year.
But again, that would be that year that it took the city commission to make that decision that was the city commission's decision, and they're not bound by anything else than what they do at that particular time. Just as we are not bound what some other commissioner decided that might be a good idea. We might not find that this is a good idea. It makes something different. So that having been said, what do I hear? Is a decision, or is it not a decision? Is there a yes, sir?
I have some comments as well.
Oh, that's for the commission.
So at the last meeting, I suggested that we leave the language in this version that would change the language to allow the city administrators to hire and fire. And I wanted to do that because I felt it would be easier to switch it back to how it currently stands with the commission hiring and firing at this meeting, pending my informal survey of some folks at Market and around town and just talking to some citizens. In talking with the citizens, it was almost even with people in favor and people against. And so for that reason, I think that it would make sense for us to take the language, not the city administrator, and change it back to how it currently stands, still using this version that the previous charter review committee went over and did, had review of. That's not to say that we couldn't consider this portion next year, but at least it would afford us the opportunity to clean up the language. So those are my thoughts. I won't continue. Thank you.
I agree. I think that will give us a little more time to set the responsibilities and a little more detail. It's kind of broad here. Because I was confused with the name based on what the responsibility appears to be.
And I think it gives us more time too for the public to ask the questions and see how they really feel about it. I know we had public comment last time saying, hey, we've turned this down a few times. That makes perfect sense. I don't want to see this turned down again for language cleanup over these changes. And I'd like to see that we put the changes clearly in front of the public to where they're comfortable with those changes should they occur. I would feel better about that being really clear and transparent, and I just think I don't want anybody to have a feeling that we're trying to sneak that in. And that was kind of after talking with some of my neighbors and some citizens. That's, they weren't aware because they don't attend these meetings, and so I think it would be better if we educate over the next year and maybe bring that back on the next ballot.
The other commissioner? Okay, let's hear from the public. Ron Farrell?
Yes. Would it be inappropriate to see if there's going to be a motion to table this until next year? Not take up time from the...
No.
To go through the subject?
You'd be better to come and have your say so now so that we can take that away.
It'll help in our decision process.
There are only two people.
Ron Perry, 451 West Michigan. Where it's heading, I think that's the right direction we're going. I just wanted to reiterate that these changes were before us for 2 voting times. They've been turned down. So why are we trying to rehash it? We didn't really see a new charter review committee this year, right? So we're using information from previous years, and I think by having a new committee, that might be the better way to go. I'm just going to stop there.
Thank you. Mr. Bishop?
I was hoping not to have to do this, but Roxanne, there's 2 different statement copies, so everybody, Robert, just to address what you said about
State your name and address.
Wayne Bishop, 394 North Euclid. This charter is the exact same charter that we reviewed 2 years ago. The commission then decided that they wanted to go the other route and had a very confusing 3 different options to choose from, which this, well, I did not want to support that because it did make it very confusing. This charter review was actually done back in 2018. We reviewed this charter thoroughly. Roger, you were part of that commission, and you sat in on at least one of those meetings when we went through this and had that discussion about the administrator and manager language. The reason why it basically is exactly the same thing. So, and that was only one of the things that we didn't change at that time, or we did change. It went from manager to administrator, and because it's virtually the same thing. The way our current charter is, the city administrator has all the authority to do everything but hire and fire the city employees. Which though, without that part of the puzzle, then he really has his hands tied. It makes every employee for the city become a political person versus an actual employee who has to answer to a direct supervisor. Right now, he's got to answer for 5 people, every employee. I just will take a second. What I handed you are copies of the pages of the existing charter. You said you can't compare to what we've got now. Well, I can point out the issues that we have with this current charter. And if you go down here on page 6, you'll see that it says that if you look at D, their powers and duties of the commission, except as otherwise prescribed herein or provided by law, managerial, executive, legislative, police powers, city hall shall be vested in the city commission, including but not limited to the following. And if you go over to page 7, where it says number 3, the top of the page, retaining responsibility for, and this is the city commission's responsibility, retaining responsibility for all hiring and termination of employees, evaluations in writing. All employees, you guys are responsible for doing these evaluations. So if you're going to postpone this for a year, you guys need to start getting your act together so you can get these employees reviewed, evaluated.
Time.
Look, are you going to hold me in 3 minutes and say this is important?
You said 3 minutes, I don't know.
Start at 3 minutes.
Everybody.
Just keep talking.
Mayor, the audience is out of order. Please, you can address the meeting and you can determine whether or not you allow more
Please
time.
refrain from hollering.
All right, look. Retain it. Because look, I can go through all of this and tell you, you guys, there's a lot of stuff you need to be doing right now that you're violating the current charter, which is archaic. You don't want to be hiring and firing city employees and then giving the management responsibility to somebody who has no control over his employees. All we're asking to do, I've talked to a lot of people also, and everybody understands that the way we are running this city right now is being bogged down because we've got such an archaic city charter that needs to be changed. All we are trying to do here now is go ahead and get this back on the ballot. We've got 4 months. Whether you've got 4 months or whether you've got a year, we can get out there and inform folks. We'll have plenty of time to go through this. Right now, there's a certain segment of the city, obviously, that feels like they'd rather let the employees be political objects instead of actual employees. Because that's what's going on. They know that they can come up here, align themselves with certain commissions or certain segments of the city who's got the commission here, and not have to answer to anybody else from an administrator's point of view. He can't not control the employees and he can't be able to discipline. That's what it comes down to. So there's a lot that has to be changed in this charter. This new charter that was reviewed by 2 different charter committees, 2 different city commissions. Thousands of dollars have been paid to the city attorney to get this document. There was a lot of work put into this in 2018. We did not do a whole lot to change anything when we sat down 2 years ago and put this together. It's pretty much the same document that was done in 2018. So I strongly recommend that we get this on the ballot and try to get this thing pushed through to take this responsibility, get it on your shoulders, because otherwise we're setting ourselves up for some major litigation at some point. Because even the city employees don't understand exactly what the responsibility of you folks are. But if you try to, we just had an incident today where 2 employees thinks the city commissioner Bishop is out there stalking and harassing. Well, according to the city charter, all of y'all should be out there observing them so that you can make an honest evaluation. But nobody's doing that. Please reconsider your thoughts on this. Just put it on the ballot. Let's let the people decide. let's take the time to get people informed, to see if we can get this thing finally pushed through and have this city running like a business. Thank you.
Can I respond? Mr. Bishop, I appreciate all the work and everything you've done and everything, but from what I understand, I mean, I talked against the last charter change, and I'm going to talk against this one because of reasons I stated earlier. But there is some errors in some of your statements that you made. In line 3 or paragraph 3, it says retaining responsibility for all hiring and termination of employees. Evaluations in writing, the city administrator's job performance at the end of the initial 6 months probationary period and at least yearly thereafter. From what I understand, in past commission meetings, they've allowed the department heads to do the evaluations and submit them to the commission. So, because they know more on what the employees are doing than we do.
Get your attorney to tell you what's going to happen whenever this goes up before somebody else's legal counsel.
I'm still going to speak against, and I don't understand why there's such a big push to get it on this year. I know I was talking about, when I brought it up, I was talking about a couple of administrative changes that dealt with problems with the past election that was not carried over when they changed it from everybody being elected 2 years and just splitting it up. So the 3 of them are elected in odd years and 3 of them are elected in even years, splitting up so that everybody's not replaced at the same time. They left out a couple of changes that need to be made. Those were the ones I was trying to correct. You came up and pushed this whole big thing from 2018, and from what I understood the committee did, they went through a bunch of meetings and everything else and kept on hashing back and forth, and from what I understand at the last meeting they said, let's just go with the 2018 thing and present it to them. That is not the way to do a charter. It needs to be done properly, evaluated correctly, and that's what I'm going to push for. If it's going to take us 2 years to do it, I'll suffer through the 2 years with what we've got just to be able to get it done right so it's correct and the citizens understand it better.
Just to correct what you said, that was not rushed and pushed through like that, just because certain city commissioners and the city administrator is attending all those meetings, was trying to push just for those 3 amendments that they wanted to see voted on, because everybody was more concerned about getting 4 years instead of 2. That's exactly why that thing got pushed through the way it did, because y'all never had any intention of reviewing the full charter and getting that thing back on the ballot. That's why I jumped back up here now. This is what should have been done, voted on 2 years ago, not the mess that went out.
Public comments, Nancy Weary.
Nancy Weary, 435 West Delaware, and I don't mean this to be disrespectful when I say this, but my understanding was that Mr. Bishop did not support these changes when he was on this committee, number one. Number two, there were more on that committee than Mr. Bishop and Mr. Preston, and it was not unanimous for the changes in the charter at that time. Thank you.
Mr. Mullen.
Jennifer Mullen, 271 West New York Avenue. I just have a question about personnel review boards and what you guys have to protect the employees with the Human Resources Department and all of those things. Those things have to come first before you give one person the hand.
The statement that was read, that highlighted this is highlighted number 3. The city administrator's job performance at the end of the initial 6 months probationary period and immediately thereafter. Well, what I guess I'm going back to is right after we replaced Don Lindell with KC, one of the things that we, because of his performance in office. And what had come up is that they never did a job review in 6 months. And he was basically running amok. It was a time where, because of the city administrator's inability to basically do his job, we had a tremendous turnover in employees. We lost our city attorney. We lost a couple of, at that time, we had finance directors, and it all stemmed from the city administrator not knowing his job. And because he wasn't doing his job, the city commission, I should say, was not doing our job, because they didn't bring him up and make a regular appointment for a review. So the city administrator is under the review of the city commission, as well as the employees. But what I'm hearing is, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that we're not doing our responsibility. The city administrator, if he's not doing a review of his employees, it should fall on us to do that.
Doesn't have the authority.
Is that, can you give me some clarification on that statement in terms of?
Me? I actually read it a little different.
Okay, please.
And I read it, and it says, subsection 3, retaining responsibility for all hiring and termination of employees, semicolon. Then it says, evaluation in writing, comma, the city administrator's job performance at the end of an initial 6-month probationary period and at least yearly thereafter. Colon, semicolon. But, so I think there's a separation between retaining and firing employees in the evaluation, because if you go to C2 under administrator responsibilities, which administrator shall prepare department head probationary and annual performance evaluations and recommend promotions, demotions, position classifications, reclassifications, and wage and salary adjustments to the city commission for review and approval.
He does department heads.
It says
Department heads.
prepare, yeah, department head evaluations.
What number are you reading, I'm sorry?
That's number 3. So, and I guess the fact that I can read this differently kind of tells you it ought to be cleaned up.
Exactly.
Can I speak?
Yes.
Thank you. This is just almost comical to me, because ever since I've sat on this dais, I have heard, we cannot tell the city employees what to do. But yet we have the hiring and the firing. And I view that as at least the employees working for this city at least have a committee of people that they can go to if they're working in a hostile environment, if they're being retaliated against, if they're being discriminated against. So at least they've got this panel of people they can come to and complain. We do not have a civil service board here in Lake Helen. I was the first female to be elected to the Sanford Civil Service Board. First time ever historical. So I know a little bit about protecting employees. And I think I heard you say, Mr. Bishop, and I'm not, please don't take this wrong, but it kind of hit me the wrong way, that you alluded to the fact that it's the commissioner's position to go out and watch what the employees are doing, because our city administrator doesn't have that right. He does have that right to do that. And I would go as far as to say that if any one of us commissioners is out there tracking one of our police officers, our public works director, the lawnmowers, anybody, that is placing this city into a situation of being sued, an EEOC complaint being filed, and then we're going to be in trouble, because I can tell you, I know what the files look like in City Hall, which I've already had a conversation about that. We are so screwed up, and I bet if I ask either one of the administrators here, the assistant city clerk or our city administrator, define Title 7, define Title 9, bet they can't do it. So I think for the benefit at this time, I'm not saying 2 years from now, our employees just came out of a horrendous mess with the previous administrator. So why do we want to go in 5 months later and say, let's do the same thing? That's not our job as commissioners. This man here, he has every right to write up an employee, discipline an employee. He just can't fire and hire. Now, if they want to have a complaint against something that he's done, they can go through the open door system, which is coming to this Pamela Pond.
Should be a personnel review board by your charter.
Well, hey.
Where's that? That's what you need to get into.
Let me tell you, I just started
I
here.
can explain that when she gets done.
Hold on. Just to clarify one thing that you said. The city charter as it stands now does not give any city commissioner the right to direct any city employee other than to speak to the city administrator.
That's what I said. We can't, you told me over and over, I can't tell an employee what to do.
I didn't tell you over and over, I'm just making the point that no city commissioner, singular, can go to a city employee and say, you know, you guys ought to be doing some speed traps when they come to my neighborhood, for instance. It is part of my discussion, maybe not part of yours, but it's part of mine. Is that as far as the city commission is, we hold him responsible, the city administrator. And because the city administrator is the one that we have decided through this charter that he gives direction to the city workers that we give to him. Now, there's been, you mentioned the EEOC, I was also a union rep, and I can tell you that some of the things that I've seen in this city, I advise someone to go through the EEOC because they were not being given the kinds of response from the city administrator that they should have gotten, or from the city commission. So we got a lot of ways to look at this. Roger, you were going to say something? I'm sorry for the...
Well, I was going to wait till Linda got done. Her
I was responding to her, but that's what
When I became a commissioner in, what, 2021?
2020.
2020? Okay, 2020. One of the things that they told me beforehand was to make sure I understood the charter. So I read the commission's job in the charter. One of the things was that we assigned a citizen review board. When it came up to that list of different job assignments that are available for citizens to participate in, that was brought up back in February or March of this year, I brought that up in January. I was put on the legislative side, which is kind of strange, but, and I asked, you know, well, are we going to assign a citizens review board? And they says, no, we don't need that anymore. Even though it's in the charter. So it was on the list of jobs that was presented in February, and any citizen that wants to be on the citizen review board, I believe there's a position for 3 people. They can submit their names and be on that panel, and they would do it. So if any citizen out there, again, along with all the other citizen jobs that are available out there, want to be on the review panel, they can submit their names to the city administrator, and he can present them to us, and we can fill that spot. But until everything gets ironed down and listening to all the battling going back and forth and everything over this, it just points to the need to wait to make sure the charter is done correctly. And and that is not a jump of the gun, seat of the pants type operation to where we end up into the same problems we had in the past. It needs to be done right.
Paulette Smith.
So how will we, as a commission here, expect to make an educated guess or vote, to hire, fire, give raises, whatever, when we have no clue what's going on during the day? How is that?
That's what we got the administrator's position for, is to give us advice. He's our voice with information to advise us on recommendations and presentations and everything else that we should make, that we need to review and make a decision on.
Are you
We
running up and down
can
the
do
road
the
all
decisions
day?
in his favor, or we can do decisions against him.
No, because I'm working on public records requests.
That's right. He said he's not up running up and down the road looking at employees, he's working on public records requests.
Unfortunately, y'all don't want to fix the problem here. And the reason why nothing is going to get done in this city is because you want to keep things the way they used to be and continue to be, and it's just very inefficient, very archaic. The employees don't know what direction they're supposed to go in because they know they don't have the answer to this man. They don't have, and take personalities out there. That's what we've always tried to do.
Wait a minute. But my answer to him, we have a chart flow. City commission, him and a lawyer, they go down to me. I can't go to the city commission before I go to him.
Exactly. But he has the authority.
If he tells me I have to go do something, I have to go do something.
The bottom line is he cannot discipline.
Please have some order.
Let's keep it back up. And, there is a, I didn't see, Paulette? Oh, I didn't see you here.
She's hiding back.
Paulette Smith, from the jury.
Paulette Smith, 840 Westgate Black Road. I'm really confused right now. I was on the Charter Review Committee with Dwayne B. Todd president. We did discuss about the 4 years for commissioners. We also discussed about changing from administrator to a manager. Okay? We was all for it, and the day or 2 days before we had the city commission meeting, okay, everybody backed out. So now I'm really confused why now we're making a big issue about it. I feel, yes, like Rick just said, it's a chain of command. Rick answered to him, okay, and Rick employees answered to Rick. We can't keep running around. Everybody want to be the boss. Everybody want to do this, want to do that. Everybody want to do their own thing when it's good or make them look good. We got to follow rules. If not, we just gonna, I don't know what we're gonna do. I give ourselves another 3 or 4 years, and we're not gonna be anywhere because everybody want to do, it's a personal thing to people. It's personal. I don't like this one. I don't like that one. I don't like it. How in the hell are we gonna get the help? Acting the way we act. Amen. It's not about nobody's religion, but you cannot run around, oh, I don't like this person, I don't like that person. We're all here together, living in that hell, trying to make our life better. So I think what all of us need to do, including myself, we all need to act like adults and quit wearing your feelings on your shoulder. Whatever happened in the past, let it stay in the past. Be a big girl. Put on your, as I tell my daughter and my son, put on your big girl clothes and handle it. You got to do that. We got to quit taking this stuff personal. Whatever happened last year, 5 years ago, let it stay there. Let it stay there. Don't try to come and get on the commission, on the commissioner, to be a commissioner, to make yourself do something that you want to do. Don't go run because somebody else wants you to run to make somebody else upset. It don't mean anything. All you're doing is making yourself look crazy. All of us. Because we can't get along. And that's what we need to do. We need to grow up, all of us.
That's all I have to say.
Yes, sir.
If I say something, I think one of the fundamental questions is, y'all need to give direction on it, in my opinion. Because do you want to amend the current charter? Or do you want to have a new charter? Now, how do we get to that? You're saying, well, it's the same thing. Well, what's the process of getting there? Because Lynn and Roger, I can tell you, if you're going to try to look at our new, what we're proposing, and compare it to the old, it ain't going to make any sense at all. Because the intent was not to modify the old to create a new. It was saying, let's take a brand new model form. You're not going to be able to tie them up. You're wasting time if you think you're going to do that. You have to read the new charter and say, does this make sense, regardless of what the old one said? Because there's a lot of things in the old one that just don't make sense when it's in here talking about it. But if you want the public, and so you understand it, and the public to understand it, to go through and strike out all the changes to the current charter and insert new language, we can do that. I would suggest we do that in stages, because if you do it all at one time with all those strikeouts and all those underlines, I believe it will be more confusing. I really do. But we could take topics, which were sort of like the 3 questions that were asked last time. But I would just submit, one option would be, let's pick a topic, and this has been discussed before. That's a question. Let's address that topic as one question on one referendum. And we change our current charter to reflect what those changes would be. And to some extent, I think Roger was talking about that, we had some major changes. You know, there's some things that just flat out conflict. You know, and I don't even know which one, to be perfectly honest with you, I can make an argument we have 4-year terms, I can make an argument we have 2-year terms, I can make an argument we have staggered terms, I can make an argument we don't have staggered terms. That's how poorly this charter is. So that needs to be addressed. It really does. And I think that's what Roger wanted to address. We can address that. The next year, pick another topic, and then modify our current one. That way you might be able to read and see, this is the change, this is what he used to say, it's stricken through, now this is what it says on this topic. I think if you do it all at once, it'll be too much, and I think if you try to do that based on what the charter review, 2 committees have said, we just need a new charter. And so that's why we had a brand new written charter. It's very, very difficult to match words to words and sections to sections. It just won't work. You'll go crazy doing that. You could read it and see what effectively it does and compare that to our old charter. That may be one way to do it, but you're not going to be able to do it line by line or section by section.
Well, my point is that with the old charter, I don't know if there's anything that actually pertains to the new charter that hadn't been added to the new charter. I just want to be able to see, are we missing anything? But my main point is that when we put in language that's, you know, just kind of breaks down what the city administrator does, we do create problems. We just heard it from the citizens. There isn't a chain of command. It's not like the employees, we go out and I don't go out and I don't follow employees around and tell them what they've got to do 1 at a time or 10 at a time. They should know that the pecking order is that Mr. Gleason is their boss. He's the one who hands out the responsibilities and the tasks to be done for the day. He's the one who writes their reviews. We're here to help him hire and fire when necessary, but we're here also to help protect these employees that have really had some bad raps in this city. And I think that could kind of come into play on, it's like a policy and procedure book, you know?
So you're on the civil service board, Seminole County, right?
I'm sorry?
You were on the civil service board?
Yes, I was.
Did the county council hire and fire all the employees?
Did the county council?
The county council hired and fired every employee?
No, but the civil service was completely separate from the council.
But I understand that, but my question is, who hired and fired the employees in Seminole County?
I was in the city of Sanford.
Okay, take the city of Sanford. In the city of Sanford, who hires and fires all the
We
time?
had a manager. We had a city manager.
There is no difference between manager and administrator. There really isn't.
Based on the responsibilities.
It's based on responsibility.
That's what I said, we can call them a
Yeah,
dog catcher.
you call me anything you want.
My wife calls me asshole. And those people agree with me.
But, you know, and it doesn't, you also are, they're all, both are subject to termination at the pleasure of the commission, whether it's a manager or an administrator. And we kind of get caught up in the semantics of that term. In many ways, your administrator here has far more power than managers in other jurisdictions. Because your charter says he's the planner. He's the clerk. I mean, there's a lot of authority put into the city manager, which you don't see in a lot of other charters. And so it's a kind of a given thing. So, but the big difference is who does the hiring and firing. I don't like the fact that our charter says we have to have a personnel board, personnel review board. We don't have to. But, you know, we have one created on paper. We just don't have anybody to fill the spot. That is always concerning. So,
Can we get in trouble for that? For not following our own charter on stuff?
yeah.
Really?
Well, if you create a process where, because we have personnel reviews before the board in our charter, we have rules that people are supposed to appeal to a personnel board.
Right.
Their appeal is valid.
That's right. But there's other things in there that we're not following.
Yeah, so, but if we have the board created and we have no people willing to serve on it, we're kind of in a catch-22. So,
But then it needs to be taken out. Probably.
well, it has to be taken out by charter. And the proposed amendment would be to take that out. One of the most important things when you think of the charter is things don't have, every issue does not have to be addressed in the charter. You know, for instance, the personnel review board, let's take it out of the charter. Does that mean we can never, ever have a personnel review board? No, it means y'all get to decide. We have to do it. So, but I think really what we need, you know, what would help me, help y'all work through this, is do you want a brand new charter where it's going to be very hard to compare to the old one, or do you just want to go through a process of amending the old one to strike through some?
And then in 20 years,
It's going to take
we'll have a
longer.
charter.
It's going to take longer, but what would be a more comfortable way to go? That's really the question. I think that would be helpful because it's a lot more work, obviously, to strike through and underline every little bit to try to make it work, as opposed to getting something more of an accepted form in the industry. But we can do that. If that makes everybody more comfortable, my advice would be just don't put all those changes on the ballot at one time. Take them piecemeal, bite by bite, and try to address them.
So that option was presented to us at the last meeting. It's my understanding that what we have before us is this new revised charter for us to vote yea or nay on, move forward with. This is the first, or the second reading. First reading, sorry. Right. The first reading of that. So it makes me think that what we need to do right now is make a motion to either move forward or not with what's here, which is the 2018 version. And so for that reason, I'm going to make a motion that we move forward with it, but change the language about the city administrator to the language that we currently have in our charter that does not allow them to hire and fire and puts that responsibility back on the commission.
We have a motion on the floor, as so stated by Mr. Rutledge. We have a second. Going once. We have no motion. Motion fails for lack of a second. I would just hope that, yes, sir.
Mayor, again, I'm stressing this has nothing to do with me and the role we take personalities out, but I think there's a misunderstanding when people think that a city manager or a city manager or administrator has the ultimate decision. In every community I've worked, yes, I had authority to hire and fire. A director could appeal any action of my direction as a city manager to the mayor and commission. So if an employee gets in trouble with their director, they can appeal to the city manager or city administrator, and that decision is done. Directors, if they had an issue with their city manager or city administrator and said, Jim wrote me up, or Jim's demoting me, or Jim's terminating me, they appeal that decision to the mayor and commission. So nowhere have I worked, if I ever had final authority to send somebody out without due process. And that due process ended with the elected commission.
I'm not understanding the direction that we're trying to go tonight, and I would like to hear from the commission on what your objectives or what your goal is, because it was my understanding that we're trying to clean up the language of this charter to make it clearer, and at the last meeting, that was the discussion that we had, and I'm not seeing any variation or deviation from that this evening. We've had a month to review it. You know, I'd like a little clarification of where we're going so that we can work together to get there, because I'm not clear.
Well, I want to, like I said before, I want to make sure that we're on solid footing, that we take it in a slow, what I call baby steps format. And I like the way that our attorney presented it, that we take one item out of it and go through that one item and see what we need to do to bring that one item forward and bring it before the citizens for elected. Not to present a whole new thing that completely turns and twists everything that we've done in the past. Just something that corrects the way things were done in the past and brings it, but doing it in baby steps a little bit at a time.
Appreciate that clarification.
I have one question. I would just like to ask everybody, is everybody in agreement that we're not in compliance with our charter as it is now?
We definitely need to make some changes.
Okay.
Years that we've not been in compliance.
Forever.
So I think that since it's been forever, and obviously state statutes have changed, I agree that with Mr. Simpson, he certainly has an advantage of more issues that can face at state level, that we take one or two items at a time, and that we work on them until we know that we've got to correct it and move forward.
The amount of experience that I've had on this city and this city commission, we are beyond the point of obsolete. We are so far from getting it together. All we can talk about is what's wrong with it. We as a commission haven't met our responsibilities to work as and I'll just say this for previous commissions in the past that I've served on. There have been those bright moments where the commission was working in sync and we got a lot of things done. Anytime we get into this quagmire where we are individually looking at who can get what done and who can upstage the next person, we're not talking about the city, we're talking about our individual decisions about how we feel about something. As all that said, we need to put on our big boy, girls, and clothes and begin to act like a city commission. Because the citizens are not happy with what we're doing. We haven't been happy with what has been happening in the past. So if there is no blueprint to success, then we'll just keep going around the same old thing, and we'll be pointing fingers, we'll be at each other's throats, and we have our opinions, and our opinions become more important than what's in it for the city. I can say this, I mean, I do respect your experience, I respect Roger's experience, I respect. What's the name? Experience. Heather. What's the name? I respect Heather's experience, but our experience requires us to be able to figure our way through this, figure our way forward. I don't see a way forward with each one of us not having, I mean, it's not going to be an all-win scenario. Some of us have to give some. I'm willing to give. I haven't made any point in this particular discussion because as the mayor, I have the ability or the responsibility as to be the tiebreaker. If there becomes a separation of votes, I have the responsibility to go left or right. So I'm trying to play it as straight down the middle as I can without showing my cards. Because whatever comes up with the best decision that I can stand behind and I can support, I want to be able to do it because it's right. I want to be able to do it because it's not right for this group or that group, but what's right for our city. I hear so few conversations and Facebook pages and everything else talking about our city. We don't, I mean, and I look at the faces that I see here. I've seen these faces for years and they've seen me and I've seen them, and I know that there are people here who have experienced what a working commission looks like. I know that there are people who are sitting in this office, in this assembly here, who know and can think back. I can remember when we had a good city staff, when we had city employees, we had city administrator. I mean, we have had those before. Somewhere along the line we lost it. And I don't know if we can find our way back if we just follow this person and that person. We all have to come together with something. We all have to give something. And that's what I find is most lacking in this is there's so few people willing to give something. Everybody's got the me, I want to take something. But give a little. You get more back in return. I'm not trying to make this a protracted thing, but we've had the experience of Mr. Bishop, who's put a lot of work into this. We've had the experience of Roger, who was on that review. We've had the experience of, I have to put myself here, 13 years of experience sitting on these boards, 15 if you consider the planning board. So I have a voice. I don't lose my voice just because I'm the mayor. Everybody that wants to talk about what they've done and what they've experienced, you don't hear me making that shout. But I want to see how we can get this right for all of us. Because every time we wind up at a quagmire, we keep putting things off, We're at a saturation point right now in our city. We can't even begin to grow with the infrastructure that we have, with the technology that we don't have. We need to be able to grow, but we're stuck on stupid over here. I'm sorry. And everybody else is looking at us like, what the hell are you doing over here? So I'm going to make I don't make this to be a prolong, but I think in light of the fact that we've been at this for 2.5 hours now, can we have a break and we'll come back. I had the last word. I'll be quiet when we come back. Just have a moment of reflection.
they wanted to do the
Pushing it into committee chairman. Well, how many people have we hired and fired? That didn't come cheap. The problem is, how are we running the city? And how much are we spending to run the city? So what? That's the problem. But he hasn't improved that. He hasn't been here 6 months. So, and he doesn't want that. So, what can he do? He back down about sitting right in that training meeting. Well, Charlene's line I'll look at the page. And that should not be brought up. That should not be brought up. How about the beginning of the meeting? You have 3 minutes. Everybody's here. Do not call out from the audience. When I call out for time, I got to call back. The city administrator called me. Yet he's the one batter back and forth, stands by the door, batter back and forth. What's the difference between him and me? We both pay taxes here. Voted down. They tried to do the whole change. They tried to do the whole change, and then they tried to do 3 amendments, all 3 got turned up, and now it's like, let's go back. We're going to go back. They weren't educated. They don't know. They don't. All righty. See what happens. I think
Okay, where we left off at? Alan Cook, comments? Don't mind.
Alan Cooks, 92 Oak Tree Lane. The only thing that I'm up here for is to get straightened out where we're going here, because you're right, you people do hire and you do fire, but you don't control and you don't run this city. Now that gentleman sitting in the middle knows just what I'm talking about, because when I was a commissioner, every commissioner had a different department that they were in control of. When I was in the road department, one of the employees had a problem, get back there, taking over. But anyhow, when that employee had a problem, he would come to me. And I would turn around and set up, see what we could do and everything else. Then, we set it up, at that time was Don Fidel, was in charge then and stuff. When Don Fidel told me one time, he says, you know what? I don't give a damn if I'm a manager, I'm a manager, I'm a damn thing. Whatever I am, I'm still going to do my job. Just like you. Now, you made that statement before, and it's very true. There's the man who runs the city. Doesn't hire and fire. And he tells that man what to do. That's how this whole city runs. And it runs efficiently that way. Every one of you can't do, like you say, you can't be out there every day watching who's cutting grass or what's going on with this or what's going on with that. It's foolish. We don't even want to talk about that. We've been sitting here arguing about hiring and firing. Yes, you do hire and fire. It's been that way since I've been here. Vernon, it's been that way ever since you've been here. Yes, that gentleman brings to us and him who they suggest might be a good employee. Then you review it and you hire them. And if you don't feel it's right or something's wrong or you do an investigation, then we don't hire them. That's all. But don't get confused. We've been going around for 2 hours here, back and forth and everything else, and all we're trying to do is, yes, you hire and fire, but you do not control the city. The city is controlled as far as everyday use, cutting grass, what do this, do that, and everything else is on that gentleman right there. So that's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Well, I'd like to see if the commission do the same thing that we did when we came up with the workshops. Everybody go through the charter, either by subject or by item description. Come up with a list and prioritize which ones you think are the most important that need to be corrected to the least important. Turn it into the administrator. He can compile the list and bring it back to us so that we can say, okay, this is the one we're going to attack first, this is the one we're going to attack second. And so we can start taking care of the problems that we feel that we have with the charter and get it done in a form that the citizens would be more apt to understanding and be willing to accept, rather than just shoving a whole brand new thing down their throat without having the proper input into it.
Please clarify what proper input is in your opinion. Because I would think that would be the charter review committees that we've had over the past several years. So I'm not understanding.
It was like the last charter review committee, like Paulette said, at the last few hours before the meeting was going to come, or the day before the meeting was to come, everything that they had worked on was dropped, and they said, let's just do the 2018 one again. And here we are back with the 2018 one again. It needs to be done so that in baby steps, section by section, item by item, to make the corrections that we feel need to be made, bring it to the citizens, and in a workshop or whatever, see what they feel about it, and get it done to where everybody, the citizens and us and everybody has input into it, and we get it done to where it's done right. That's a recommendation.
If you want all the citizens' input, why don't we just mail out a form to them and let them fill it out?
They can come to a workshop like we have and have their input at the workshop, like we've done in the past.
That's not.
It's getting everybody that's interested into it. Everybody gets notified that we're having the workshops. The ones that are interested into seeing that the city gets done right are the ones who show up.
All right, y'all do it, whatever. I'm agreeable to whatever y'all say.
Can I make a recommendation, Mayor?
Sure.
The question for you is this ordinance, and so to move this along, if no one wants to make a motion, then this ordinance can die for lack of a motion. And then I think Roger's suggestion is a proper discussion, say, okay, let's move this way, because what Roger's proposing, that won't be something that we can get on this upcoming ballot. So that's for next year, what Roger's talking about. So, but I think we ought to dispose of this ordinance that we have before. That's what's on the agenda. That's the agenda item, is this ordinance. If it doesn't pass, we have time to say, okay, let's do it this way. If everybody agrees with what Roger wants to do, that's fine. But I think we ought to dispose of this ordinance first. And that's really what
Did we already do that since the motion died for a second?
It did, but Commissioner Rutledge did bring up a second point, and that might be something that she was asking us to give some feedback. Yeah.
So I would just say if there's no motion, this is going to die, and go on to the next meeting item, and then we know that's over. And then under comments, if anybody wants to say comments, let's address this as well. There's been a lot of comments, and I think tonight or under your comments or over before the next meeting, give direction to the administrator one-on-one on how you'd like to go forward with this. I told you what I think y'all have the decision you need to make, the fundamental decision on how to proceed. And then that will help us craft the document and work it out next year to present something. And y'all prioritize, as Roger indicated, what you want. The first item y'all want to see on the change. If you want to just do one, we'll go with that one. But I'd like to dispose of this item first.
We follow the protocol with the motion being put on the floor and with no second, it is actually, in fact, has died on without the lack of a second. So, you have a comment?
Yeah, my only comment is just following up on Roger. We used the word workshop. I think if you call a special meeting, that would be more productive than if you actually can vote and make decisions in that meeting. So if you get consensus, we don't have to carry it over to another month in that process. Because in the workshop, we don't take votes. And I think what I learned through doing the 8 or 9 that we did, that some of that impeded us getting decisions done. So my only recommendation would be whatever we want to do, call it a special meeting so we have the ability to make decisions at that meeting.
We have a workshop coming up. That's on the 5th of the 7th. So the 8th is the actual commission meeting. What space do we have to follow through with that? With the August 8th being the actual meeting, and then the following week we're going to be out of town. So what's the timetable that we're supposed to?
Your timetable's unlimited because if you don't take action on this tonight as a first read and carry it over to a second read, you will never make the county deadline for anything to get on the November ballot. So you're really not under a time restraint unless there's a motion to move this one forward.
So with the first reading, and if it were at the first reading, the second reading would be the same thing that would have been said or read in the first reading without changing.
No, you can make changes
You can make
tonight.
changes.
That was why I made that suggestion.
Yeah, that's a good point. So if we move.
The second reading, you can't make changes, if I'm correct, Scott.
You give the second meeting, you can't make some change, you can't change the title
Okay.
of it. Just the title has to stay the same for the first and
Right.
second reading.
Okay.
But modifications can be made next year.
Even after it's voted on the second reading?
Oh, not after it's voted.
Not second.
No, no, no.
But it has to be advertised.
Yeah,
So we have to make a room for advertising.
because your title by law has to be read twice. If you change the title, we have to start over again, we got to reread it again the first time. So as long as your title stays the same, you can make a change between first and second reading.
So my concern about having a special meeting regarding this is that we've already had a workshop. We've kind of done this song and dance several times already. And I would like to see that this be productive. I don't want to go round and round chasing our tails again about this topic. So I would respectfully ask that we all come super duper prepared so that we can make this an effective meeting and we can collaborate together to move forward in the direction we see ourselves going. I'm willing to make plenty of compromises in order to make that happen. And I would ask that we all do the same. Because we've kind of, you know, I've seen this come up 3 years in a row. And all 3 years, it's been said, hey, we need to clean up the language, we need to clean up the language. There's been some other things coming out of there, but, so if that's the direction that we're all, you know, trying to get to, then, and that's my objective, then let's do that, and all, you know, that way we can have a productive meeting.
Okay. Does that stand for a motion?
Yeah, there would have to be a motion to do the second read, or as Scott said, there's no motion, and now you can just move on to the next item.
Well, I make a motion, we drop ordinance 2024-05 for future review. Or pull it, drop it, pull it.
I thought you said drop down, I've never heard that motion before. Okay,
Well,
make sure I heard it right.
let me take it out, I'll drop it.
So the motion is on the floor to say pull it, drop it,
No, not to proceed with ordinance 20.
not to proceed.
Second.
Do we have a second? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Commissioner Donato made a second. We have a vote. Zone 1.
Public comment before the vote.
Public comment? Thank you. Do we have public comment for this? The motion is to drop this, this ordinance.
Okay.
And the second to drop it. And now if there's any public comment, I would like to speak on this. No public comment. Go to a vote. See, hearing none. Zone 4.
Yes.
Zone 3. Zone 2.
Yes.
Zone 1.
Yes.
Actually, I'm going to change that one.
We
Can I do that? Can I change my vote? Or not?
finalize it.
Okay, I'm saying no. Not because, I mean, I'm in agreement with all y'all, but I have to just vote no.
No to drop.
To drop it, yeah.
Okay. Still, I mean,
Yes.
you still yes, drop it. And you're no.
I'm the
to
only
not
one.
drop it.
That's right.
Roger, you're
Yes.
yes to drop it.
Yes, but I'd like to get on the same page and move forward, cleaning up the language. And not have the firing moved around.
Well, I get a vote too, and my vote has been no. So it does not pass.
Three to two.
said?
Yes.
Yes. You said
Yes.
And you said yes. You said yes. All right, give me the three, because I'm hearing her saying yes.
Come on, Joe.
Yeah, that's all right. Please, I thought that Mr. Rutledge said yes.
Well, she did.
She did.
Okay, and you
Yes.
said,
No.
okay. So then I'm dropping it.
You said
No. So I'm
yes would be dropping it. No would be keeping it.
All right, well, I am the abstaining vote, so I'm the no. I get to say no once in a while. So no, I'm gonna say no. Okay.
Still
Moving right
passes
along.
skills.
You don't get to do that very often, but I'm gonna say no and everybody else says yes. To the next issue, we have, the basketball courts.
Yes, Mayor petition, several months ago, you directed staff to go out for bids to replace basketball courts at Melissa Park and Blake Park. And we received 4 responses to that bid. The lowest bid was $353,820 for Ford Design Group.
No way.
Please. Custom construction, $401,140. Medley Sports, $459,571.20. And Sport Services, $595,570. Rick and I then went through their bids, and we tried to look at what was in those bids that weren't necessarily needed right away in reference to dealing with the basketball courts. And each bid had sidewalks, benches, and lighting. So if we removed those items, you're still looking at Ford Design, $243,410. Custom construction, $250,940. Medley, $287,003.20. And Sport Services, $291,270. So your recommendations are: 1, to award the bid to Medley Sports per staff and Pond's evaluation and recommendation, just in reference to the bid itself being sufficient and also being the company that did the park itself. Your other option is to reject all bids and have a rediscussion, maybe not tonight, of what is the desire and how do we go forward. Because when this process started, I heard $50,000 to $60,000, so I have no idea where that number came from, but that's what we were kind of going in. The third motion could be to have direct staff to see if the bidders would remove those items that Rick and I addressed that was out there, and if they would be inclined to amend their bids. And the fourth would be to reject all bids and rebid Melissa Park. So those are your options, unless you can think of.
Rebid Melissa alone,
Well, that was the one that the whole emphasis started with.
and we added on to the Blake.
Yeah, we added Blake onto that, you know.
Blades need to be replaced too, the tree roots are messing.
I know, I'm just trying to, we did start out with Melissa, and then Blake got added, but to be honest, I mean, my recommendation is number 2, to reject all bids, and then us have a discussion determining how you want to go forward, because I don't know where you're going to get the $459,571.20 to do 2 basketball courts.
I have a question. When a bid goes out, typically, the public's notified at a time and place that the bid's going to be opened. I never saw anything that there was going to be a bid open. I Who handled putting that bid out?
In this case, Pond put the bid together. They were the engineering company that coordinated the Medley Park improvements. So they prepared the documentation for us on the bids, just as the Ohio Road project, I mean, meaning in terms of there. In this case, we had 4 responders, that bid. And so there were dates and times. There's a period when a bid goes out that they can ask questions. Those questions get submitted to Pond, then all those questions get answered, and that information goes to all 4 bidders. So it goes through that process. The bid opening, I can't tell you right here in front what was the city received them on June 11th. So maybe that was the date that we did the bid openings at City Hall. And sitting in on that would have been Roxanne, myself, Rick, and Pond Engineering.
But the commissioners weren't notified that there was a bid opening.
No, that's a staff function, and we bring the information to you.
Because I know when Mr. Abbott was in, we had a bid opening, and I believe Roxanne was working at that time, and he put out that there was going to be a bid opening time and place at this conference room, and Roger and I showed up for the bid opening to see what was going on with it. But I was kind of confused that I didn't even know there was a bid. Do we have to pay Pond to go ahead and put that bid out, or why couldn't we as the city put a bid out for it?
Because there's a lot of technical things and engineering that goes into that. It wasn't just spray a basketball court and improve it. I mean, there was engineering done for Melissa Park, to change that, where the location needed to be, where the field needed to be moved. So, I mean, it's kind of not a...
So we're paying engineering costs?
Yeah.
Okay, because I did also, when I saw the numbers that came out, I heard about them, I was like, holy cow. So I started calling and contacting some places that actually do basketball courts. And of course, it depends on, if the ground needs to be graded or something needs to be moved or whatever. Depends on the amount of work done. But typically, the average price that I got, even with lighting, and that did include benches and things like that, was around $76,000. And then we're looking at $400,000. So I'm almost ready to say, well, let's let Ricky go back out and do a personal bid himself, like we're doing with the other issue. That's a lot of money.
Per court.
Yeah.
So 76,000 per court.
Lynn, I don't doubt that, but those companies didn't bid. So, I mean, I don't know that it's... Somebody can say that after, but they had every opportunity to make that bid.
No, I get it. These are the bids you got, and that's, what you have to read, but that's a lot of money.
Especially when we have a bid out like that. We have a bid out on City Hall.
I go with your recommendation that we drop it right now.
And we can discuss it at a later date.
Absolutely.
I would like to see their drawing concepts on what their plans are.
We can get you copies of it.
Okay.
I had a card on that,
On what?
on the basketball courts.
Oh yeah, you got one for the Nancy Weary.
Nancy Weary, Delaware. I'm not sure if you guys are dropping that, but I know working on Melissa Park for several years, like many of us in this room, and some of us live right across the street from it. We have had informal bids anywhere from $24,000 to $68,000. So I would recommend, I would suggest, or like to see you all go back and see if you can't do something with Ricky to kind of hit that ballpark. And I'd really like for you all as a commission to take care of Melissa Park. This has been ongoing for years, and it keeps getting kicked down the road and not redone. Not, it doesn't need to be resurfaced, just pull it out and put it back the way it is. We don't need, all these crazy elevations. Really don't need to be paying, tens of thousands of dollars in engineering that could actually be put towards the park. I think there's enough experience. I don't believe we're required by the CDBG grants at this point or any other grants to meet any further criteria for that. I'm not sure because we lost one of those grants, but if we could just kind of pull it together here soon, and maybe we could get a new basketball court in there by the end of the summer for the people there. Thank you.
We're at 9C.
Y'all can make a motion to reject all.
Oh, I'm sorry.
If you guys are gonna reject the bids, which I think you are, would you allow me to go ahead and just call some companies and ask them for them to come out and look at it and give us their bid, we do that, Scott, after we reject them?
Yeah, if you reject it, then you can authorize.
We have several companies you'll be asking to come out and give us their individual prices on it there, just as estimates.
There you go.
So we don't have to worry about engineering or anything like that?
We have engineering already, but, so we could say, yeah, we could say, here, we have it, but we just want to know what you would charge to come out and build this right here, right now.
And I would like to add, because with my research on it, there's all different types of materials that can be used.
Oh, absolutely. We got a bunch of people around to do that are actually companies that do it.
Right, but I would like to see, for the safety of the kids, with asphalt, there's more tripping that occurs when you have asphalt courts. The bids that I were looking at were talking to contractors at $76,000. That was kind of reports.
Yeah, I can reach out to multiple companies, and we have the engineering, we have all the elevation, we have all that. And to do that, because you reject them, so we're not doing anything that's out of the ordinary. To get some legitimate bids without all that on there, the lighting and everything, if that's what you wish.
And I guess if we did, and not moving ahead, and kind of giving you the position.
We got to make a motion.
Motion to allow you to go and continue.
You need to make a motion to reject
Yeah.
the current bids. Second from that, you can make a motion on what you want to do after you reject it.
So I have a motion.
I make a motion that we reject the bids and reevaluate the process.
To reject, second. Was there a second?
Heather.
Yes.
Heather, I'm sorry. Motion is second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposes? None?
If you want to make it a little more specific, I don't want to go this far, you can make a motion to say pursuant to section 32.07.00 that you hereby authorize the purchase of by negotiation because bidding is not appropriate, where you have determined it is in the best interest of the city or not to go out for bid, and direct staff to go to make direct negotiations with the understanding that any contract in excess of $10,000 has to be approved by this commission.
Do we have a motion to what he said?
Everything you said.
I got it.
Heather made that motion.
Heather make the motion.
I make the motion that we authorize purchasing by negotiation for 32.07.00.
Second.
Motion moved and second, and all in favor? Aye. There's a question?
It's coming back to us regardless.
Unless it comes in under $1,000.
It's under $10,000, but I don't think that's going to happen.
$110,000.